Summer movie season has come to a close, and normally I put out my most anticipated movies of the fall list in mid-August. Luckily, I'm late getting this video out this year because one of my top 3 most anticipated films of the fall was delayed.
It's so hard to say goodbye.
So today I'm going to share my 10 most anticipated movies of the fall, plus some honorable mentions. While I'm talking, be sure to join me down below in the comments section. Let me know your most anticipated movies of the fall. And if there's a smaller movie that you think maybe I haven't heard about that you think I would like, let me know about it in the comments, and let's get started. Call me crazy, but coming in at number 10 is Saw X. I'm not even a particularly big fan of the Saw movies, but something about this specific premise and the trailer that they cut made me go, I actually can't wait to watch that movie. So essentially what they're doing with this film is it's set between Saw 1 and Saw 2. And if you're familiar with the Saw franchise, Jigsaw is the star of the franchise, but he was never the star of any one movie. He was always kind of a side character or in flashbacks or in custody. And finally, nearly 20 years after the first movie, they're putting him front and center. And they've kind of come up with a plot here where what he's doing, you wouldn't call it justified, but it is him kind of getting revenge against bad people.
This is not retribution. It's a reawakening.
So it turns Jigsaw into even more so this anti-hero type supervillain, which for whatever reason, I'm taking the bait and I'm into it. 9, Hitman. This is a Richard Linklater film starring my close personal friend that I've never met, Glenn Powell.
Did we just become best friends?
Yep. And it was actually worked on by one of my critic friends here in Austin. And I had heard about the movie. I was aware of its existence. I was kind of interested in it, but it premiered yesterday in Venice at a film festival. And one of my YouTube friends, Ren, saw it, said it was the surprise movie of the festival, surprise movie of the year. I'm guessing that means he thoroughly enjoyed it. So a movie that I was like curious about, all of a sudden I got very excited to check this one out.
You had my curiosity, but now you have my attention.
I don't know much about it, but it just sounds interesting. It's this action comedy, strange ties and everything kind of going on with it. So want to check it out. 8, Next Goal Wins. This is an upcoming sports film from Taika Waititi. And I had it on my most anticipated list of 2020. They shot this movie about 4 years ago. And then between COVID and having to replace Armie Hammer, the movie just has sat on a shelf for years and it's finally coming out. Now, Taika Waititi, with some of the quotes that he gave on the press tour for Thor, Love and Thunder, as well as because of the quality of that film, my immediate interest in him has waned a little bit over the last several years, so I'm not as excited about an upcoming Taika Waititi film as I was back in 2020 when he was coming off of Jojo Rabbit and Thor Ragnarok, but still, back in 2020, it was one of my top 10 most anticipated, so it remains a film I'm looking forward to.
I can't work with these guys. For them, it's like some sort of game.
It is a game, Thomas.
And I like sports films, and it stars Michael Fassbender, who hasn't been in a whole lot recently, so I'm excited to see him in something. Real quick, before I give you more of my most anticipated films of the fall, I've got a companion video to this over on my Patreon page with 7 movies I can't believe I'm not that excited for. These are big franchise movies for franchises that I love that I just don't have much excitement for at all. Join over on Patreon at any level and you can gain access to that video as well as hundreds of other exclusives, hundreds of live streams. Every single week I do a pair of live streams on Patreon. One of them is a Q&A where I answer everybody's questions. The other one is a live box office show. Also, if you join at $5, you can get your name on my end card at the end of my videos. And if you join at the top tier, you can have a one-on-one video chat with me every month. You can learn more about that down below. And if you join, you can get that extra video talking about movies I'm not excited for that are coming out this fall. 7, Napoleon, the upcoming Ridley Scott film starring Joaquin Phoenix as Napoleon. Of course, Ridley Scott is one of the great directors of the last 50 years, and he's made some amazing films, especially when they are these big, gigantic, sweeping epics. Joaquin Phoenix, of course, is one of the great actors of our time, and Napoleon, one of the most interesting people of the last several hundred years. So when you take great director, great actor, great subject matter, give it a big budget, there's a lot of potential that we're going to get something really good here. Next up, Wonka. Now, this movie wasn't really on my radar at all. I wasn't thinking to myself, man, I can't wait to get a new Willy Wonka prequel story about him becoming the master of candy or whatever. Then the trailer dropped. And I just thought the trailer for this movie was so charming.
I'm making chocolate, of course. How do you like it? Dark, white, nutty, absolutely insane.
And just the optimistic energy that just oozes out of Timothy in that lead role, I just found it infectious. So this movie, I was not looking forward to. The trailer absolutely did its job, won me over, and got me excited for it. 5, Ferrari, the upcoming Michael Mann film about Ferrari, starring Adam Driver. I tend to like these types of movies that are about people pursuing greatness, that have these obnoxious personalities, tie into cars and things like that. I'm not super into cars, but I am into car movies generally speaking. And when you've got a bunch of talent involved, once again, piques my interest. But they put out this quote a week or two ago talking about how this movie includes crash sequences involving dismembered body parts.
Yes! 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 Yes!
And I immediately went, that is a movie made for me. 4, The Killer, the latest David Fincher film. Now, his last film, Mank, was something pretty different for him, and this feels like him returning to the type of movie that made him famous in the first place. It's a psychological action thriller about a hitman where a hit goes wrong and now an international manhunt is underway to track him down. Stars Michael Fassbender, who stars in the second film that he's been on this list, so it feels like a bit of a comeback for him. Of course, David Fincher is a great director. I love it when he makes these types of movies, and I love hitman assassin films, and we don't have that many like mainstream big director hitman assassin films anymore coming out of Hollywood. So when you put all those ingredients together, this is very much my kind of thing. Real quick, before I give you my top 3, here are some honorable mentions. First up, Dumb Money. This is a movie looking at the GameStop incident from a few years back. It was a fascinating story. The trailer is very lively, star-studded. Can't wait to check it out. Maestro, this is the latest film from Bradley Cooper. I loved his last film, A Star is Born. I debated putting this in the top 10 on borrowed trust based off A Star is Born, but the specific subject matter isn't quite as interesting to me, so I didn't think I'd be being honest if I put it in my top 10. Anyone But You. Now, this is a rom-com from the director of Easy A, and it stars my close personal friend that I've never met, Glenn Powell.
Did we just become best friends? Yep.
As well as Sydney Sweeney. So I'm just interested in checking it out. It seems like the kind of movie that would make a great date night with my wife. Five Nights at Freddy's. Now, I have very little knowledge of Five Nights at Freddy's, but my son is obsessed with Five Nights at Freddy's, even though he barely has any exposure to it. So he's excited for it. My nephew's excited for it. So I'm excited for it. Disney's Wish. Disney, of course, is a top animation studio. And while their output has been a little bit uneven the last few years, anytime they put something out, it has my attention. The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. So this is of course, the latest movie in the Hunger Games franchise. I'm not like a massive Hunger Games fan or anything like that, so this one doesn't crack my top 10, but it certainly has my attention, and I'm a little curious about it. Final one on here, Poor Things. This movie actually debuted over the weekend at a film festival, and it had 100% on Rotten Tomatoes as its initial score on there. I guess it's sort of a Frankenstein-esque story with Emma Stone as this girl that's brought back to life. And so sounds interesting, has fantastic reviews, so you have my attention. In third place, Killers of the Flower Moon, the latest Martin Scorsese team up with Leonardo DiCaprio, and it has all sorts of other fantastic actors thrown into the mix. Of course, Martin Scorsese is one of the top directors of the last 50 years. So anytime he puts something out, you know you have to pay attention to it. And he also only teams up with the best actors. And so you know you're going to get a good movie out of this. You know you're probably going to get a great movie out of this film. So it has my attention.
I was sent down from Washington, D.C. to see about these murders.
So you what about him?
See who's doing it.
Another reason this one is high up on the list, as if I need another reason besides it's a Martin Scorsese film, is that I am finally working to do a Martin Scorsese ranking. People have been asking me to do it for years. I just needed the right window of time where I could watch all of his movies, which he's got over 25 movies, and a lot of them are like 3 hours long. So that's like 60, 75 hours of movie watching to do one ranking, and I'm finally making it happen. And actually, I bought a couple books about Martin Scorsese's films and trying to do a deep dive into all of it to do something special for that ranking. Our runner-up, Rebel Moon. This is the latest film from Zack Snyder, and in its original form, it was pitched to Lucasfilm to be a potential Star Wars project. Now, of course, that didn't happen, but what that means is we're essentially getting Zack Snyder's take on Star Wars, Dune, and a bunch of other different classic sci-fi projects. And to me, just that description right there has me interested. Like, I would immediately want to check that out. Zack Snyder, whether you love him or hate him, you have an opinion about him. He's an interesting director. He has a unique style and vision. You can tell when you are watching a Zack Snyder movie. Sometimes that's a great thing, and sometimes that's a horrible thing, but he's interesting, and he's tackling material that I thoroughly enjoy. So I watched the trailer, and it looked so up my alley, so excited to check it out. Now, to be fair though, movies based off Zack Snyder's scripts and stories historically don't have the best track record. Sucker Punch cut an awesome trailer. So what on earth am I looking at? And then on a story level, did not work for me at all. But it looked cool. So there is, of course, the chance that this movie will be another gorgeous looking movie with cool action set pieces and a very weak story. The trailer seems to imply it has enough kind of like hero's journey stuff in there that I think it's going to work. I think it's going to be great, but I could be wrong. But coming in at number 1, The Creator. This is the latest film from Gareth Edwards, the director of Rogue One, as well as Godzilla 2014. And essentially, Disney gave money to this guy to tell an original big budget sci-fi story. So immediately right there, I want this movie to succeed because that's what I want Disney and other major studios to do more of. Tell original stories, build out new worlds, come up with new creative characters. Trust these directors with a distinct vision and style to tell big, cool stories that aren't just tied to pre-existing properties. So just right there, this movie probably would have cracked into my top 5 because I love sci-fi movies. The trailer looked cool. I liked the style of Rogue One. So right there, I'd be excited for it. But I also know a guy that saw it at a test screening back in April. And as soon as he got out, he texted me, dude, you have to have The Creator as one of your most anticipated films of the fall. So I did it. There, friend, I did it. Then he went on to say, afterwards, they do these focus groups to discuss the movies. And in the focus group, they struggled to find anyone that didn't say the movie was great or fantastic.
That's great!
There's like 20, 30 people that just watched it. Everyone loved the film. And he says, fantastic. It's just massive in scope and size. It's everything I wanted to hear. Sounds awesome. It's right up my alley. And I want more movies like this made. So for me, it comes in at number 1. If you enjoyed this video, remember I have a companion video to this about movies I can't believe weren't some of my most anticipated films of the fall. That's over on my Patreon page. You can check that out at the link down below in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.